Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs live stream here on the Fantasy Pros Twitch channel. The Stanley Cup finals have arrived, perhaps a little bit earlier than we expected. I am Tyler Conium, wearing the Edmonton Oilers jersey today. Had to do it. Joined, as always, by BettingPros NHL expert and Edmonton Oilers fan, Kelly Kirby. I guess I don't have to ask you how you're doing today.
I'm doing pretty splendid. I'm wearing last year's Western Conference champion shirt,
There we go.
which is just more. I wore it last night too, which is just more indication of how stupid confident I was. Because otherwise, I'm like, why would I jinx them? And yet I didn't care. And I didn't jinx them.
Well, it worked out. And we're going to talk about jinxes today for sure, because there's a big thing that the Oilers and McDavid did last night that we will get to. As a reminder, we are live each and every Tuesday and Friday at 3 p.m. here on Twitch throughout the end of this Stanley Cup Finals. If you are watching this on YouTube, be sure you're following and subscribed to twitch.tv/fantasypros so you can come hang out with us live on those days. So feel free to drop a comment, question, anything you want to talk about as we get into the Stanley Cup Finals. So lots to get into here, lots of storylines, lots of different things we can talk about, lots of bets. You cashed your game 5 bet there for the Carolina and Florida series, so we made some money there. I got the Panthers to win game 5 on their own, so that was nice there. So obviously we've got the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers part 2. They rematch again in the Stanley Cup Finals last year with the Florida Panthers winning this. They've now made it for the 3rd consecutive year. So I guess in hockey terms, do we consider this to be a dynasty?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I guess I hadn't really thought of it. But maybe. I mean, they keep arriving out of the East, no matter who else is doing anything. But again, with the rearranged playoffs this year, it was also like, did they, was this set up in the best way possible for them? Which I kind of start to believe that it was a little bit.
Yeah, and I've kind of been having this conversation with my friends of, you know, you can't, I guess, consider it a dynasty because they've only got one championship so far. It's just 3 appearances. You look at the Golden State Warriors, the New England Patriots, the Kansas City Chiefs, but I just feel like in hockey, it's not the 80s anymore. It's so much harder
Mhm.
to get to multiple finals, just as we've seen with upsets and all that. So I think they're pretty close. And then I saw a thing, the 2000, you looked at the 2014 NHL draft, by the way, or how that worked out. Because I was looking at it
Mhm.
today. Number 1 pick was Aaron Ekblad by the Florida Panthers, still there. Number 2 was I know Draisaitl went 3 to Edmonton. Number 2 was Reinhart to Buffalo, who then got traded for a second round, a 2022 pick 8 years
Mhm.
later. And Sam Bennett was number 4. He
Mhm.
also got traded. So the Panthers have 3 of the top 4 picks
Mhm.
where he went to Calgary. So it's interesting to see how they've built sort of the old-fashioned way, because I think a
Mhm.
lot of times they're saying, the big thing is the Panthers get the tax breaks while the players want to go there. But
Mhm.
when you look at it, they've actually kind of built it through the draft. So
Mhm.
you did mention the playoff format. How do you feel? I know we've talked about this before, the 1 versus 8. We had some great first round series, great second round series. Then we get to the conference finals. Both of them wrap up in 5 games.
Mhm.
Did you find them, taking yourself out of the Oilers fan part of it, were they anticlimactic series? Were they still exciting? How did you feel about that?
I feel like they were pretty anticlimactic. I mean, I think that even the discussions that you and I had, even with the, I don't know, can Carolina do this type of thing? Um, we also talked about how it kind of felt inevitable. Like the rematch really kind of seemed like it was set up specifically for this. But this, I mean, you liked Carolina, you liked the Stars. It was. I feel like it was okay. Maybe on paper, it shouldn't have gone this way the way that it went. And I'm not sure who else you would put in the conference finals to have made it better, like for any of these teams.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the Dallas Edmonton series was certainly entertaining. I think more entertaining than Florida Carolina, which was pretty one sided. I
Mhm.
think there were a couple games Dallas could have maybe won and got this to a game 6 or maybe a game 7. At the end of the day, I think these were just the 2 best teams. But I think of, Dallas, Colorado being a great series. You think of Winnipeg being a great series, Florida and Toronto, they go to a game 7. So
Mhm.
it's would you prefer the Leafs and the Panthers to be in the conference finals? I don't know. But I know it's going to be a big topic of conversation, as it always is, because, when the most eyes are on you in the conference finals,
Mhm.
4-1, 4-1, see you later, time to go home. So be interesting to see. I don't think anything is going to change in that sense. I think the NHL just likes that system way too much.
Mhm.
Uh, and you've got your Stanley Cup bet there on the Oilers. So what are you planning to? Are you planning to play off of that and taking Florida here, or are you just going to ride it with Edmonton?
I took Florida when they were plus 125.
Okay.
That conversation that we had, and I'm like, I don't think that I did. However, last night I was like, so let's see how this set up. And I was sitting there, I was like, oh, such cowards with the -110 thing. I'm like, come on. Yeah, no, I took them at plus 125 just to offset. So I will come out ahead either way. But
And I think we kind of predicted, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we get to the end and they just say -110, especially because we've got so much time before game one. Let's see
mhm,
where it's already kind of gone a little bit towards Edmonton. I think they're like -112 or -113 now. So it will
mhm,
be interesting to see how that shakes out. And I do want to talk about Stanley Cup odds, but before we do, I do want to talk to you about an offer at FanDuel. So if you want to boost your bets, new FanDuel customers can bet $5 and win $250 in bonus bets if that first bet hits. All you need to do is head to bettingpros.com/FanDuel to get started. That's bettingpros.com/FanDuel. Make your plays on FanDuel today. Bet $5, cash that bet, and then you've got $250 in bonus bets. So, as a stats guy, as a stats nerd, I always like going back in time and looking at things and looking how things have changed as we've progressed. So, before the playoffs started, the Florida Panthers were plus 350 to win the Eastern Conference, which they did. So if you bet that, they cashed. The West was interesting, and we talked about this a
mm,
lot. The Stars and the Avalanche were both the favorites to come out of the West. Oilers were third at plus 450. And it's one of those things you look at it now with the benefit of hindsight and you go, why the heck did I not take Edmonton Oilers at plus 450? They looked mortal at the start of round one, and there we are. And then you look at the Stanley Cup odds beforehand. You got a plus 1100, I think, or a plus
mhm.
1000. The Oilers were around plus 900. The Panthers were plus 800, which were the second best odds before the Stanley Cup started. And now it's obviously shrunk all the way down to essentially even money. And then another thing that's interesting is when we wrapped up last week's show, we said Connor McDavid for the Conn Smythe is plus 165. You're never going to find better odds than that. First of all, did you bet him at plus 165?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me
because
too.
I was like, yeah, I mean, if they make it, I just don't know who else takes it. So,
Yeah. And he was the second favorite behind Nathan McKinnon. He was plus 1500 to win the Conn Smythe before the playoffs started. And I'm kicking myself all the way through because he was plus
mhm.
1500 before round two. He was plus 800 before round three. He was plus 350. He's now down to plus 120. So if you got the plus 165 last week, good for you. Do you think there's still value there at taking him at plus 120?
Yeah, I think there's definitely value. I don't know. I don't know personally if someone from the losing team wins the Conn Smythe ever. But I also think that if this is even close or if it's a high scoring and the Panthers somehow win, um, I I mean, if Bobrovsky gives up more goals, like who else are you going to give it to? But yeah, yeah, I just don't have any issue. If it's plus money, there's so many bets I will make if when you give it to me on McDavid. So this
Yeah.
one seems like if they win, there's no question.
And let's just say, hypothetically, I don't want to put it into the universe for you, but let's just say the Panthers win the Stanley Cup. Bobrovsky's the current favorite at plus 250. Got Barkov at plus 550, and then Tkachuk all the way down to plus 1800. Do you think Bobrovsky is the play there if the Panthers were to win this?
Sort of. I was looking today about like which players had really good series last year, and Kachuk was solid, and so for his number to be that low, that's tempting to me. But I mean, I think that they have that scored correctly because basically what they're saying is Edmonton is going to try to outscore them. It's on Bobrovsky to stop that. And so I think that it's okay that he's there. I'm not going to bet it. But I think that Kachuk could also have just a blow up series and steal it. So
And I agree. And when I saw that too, to me, it's one of those things where, like, I think McDavid at plus 120 is great because I think that that's probably the most likely situation. But yeah, when I looked at Florida, I'm like, this is an opportunity that let's just go hunting for some value here. You've already got plus money on McDavid. That to me, to Chuck, knowing how he plays in the finals and in the playoffs in general, he's the type of guy that plus 1800. Like, I
Mhm,
just think if you give to Chuck 18 times to be the best player in the series, is he going to do it more than once?
mhm.
And so in that sense, I feel like there is some value there. So I think for myself, McDavid, I've already got the plus 165, but I still like it at plus 120. And I do not hate Kachuk at plus 1800 at all. So as we get into this series, as we mentioned, it's opened up basically the same on either side. Minus 110 on the Oilers, minus 110 on the Panthers. When you look at this series spread, there's some money to be made there if you so choose. If you think that this series is going to be a quick one, you've got the Oilers minus 1.5, they're plus 180, and the Panthers at minus 1.5 are plus 170. So we talked about it a little bit, but do you think that this is how you expected the lines to open for the series markets? And what do you think about the series spreads? Do you think one of these teams can get it done in 5 games or less?
Yeah, actually, we'll talk about that a little bit, but I do think that this could actually get lopsided in a hurry. So it is interesting to me that the Panthers spread is actually has better odds than the Oilers spread. Um, Either way, like I don't know. Like in my head, when we get to our other bets, I'm gonna make a case, but I think the smart money is to avoid the spread at this point because it went 7 last year, even after being down 3-0. It's hard to really see if one of these teams can kind of just dominate it, but I'm still not a big fan of the spread.
That's how I felt as well. And I mean, stupidly, I guess my favorite bet from round three was for both series to go 6 or more games,
Mhm.
and neither of them went to 6 games. And I have this same feeling here of just this is one's going to be interesting because what I loved about the Eastern and the Western Conference Finals was that Florida and Carolina were so similar. That was going to be an under series. There wasn't going to be a ton of scoring. Dallas and Edmonton were pretty similar. That was going to be a high scoring series. So now you take the highest scoring, the best defensively, you put it together, and now it's like, okay, well, it was an automatic over for Edmonton, Dallas. It was an automatic under for Carolina, Florida. Once
Mhm.
we start getting into the games, which we're not going to talk too much about today, but once we start getting into the games, how are you looking at this? Like, I know game one, you can get sixes already. Like, do you think that the offense can overpower here and we're looking more towards overs, or are we looking more towards unders?
I feel like that entirely depends on, which Skinner shows up, right? I think that because I think the Oilers are gonna put 3 or more goals up pretty easily, not easily, but I mean, I think that they'll get to 3. The question is just, is Skinner gonna give up 4? So that's how you have to look at it. The return of Ekholm is huge, I think, and now that he's got, like, 6 days of rest, like, that's just a monster opportunity there. So that with his return, I'm a little bit leaning toward the under sometimes, but when we get back together on Tuesday, I'll probably give you an entire speech on why we should do the over. So um it's right now I'm just like, yeah, I want to see how the first game goes, but the fact that it's in Edmonton, um
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I would still, if the over stays plus money, I'm like, I'll take it. So
That was my thought. I had it on the best bet graphic briefly. I took it off, but I have bet game one over. It's minus. I got the 6, so you can get a 6.5 if you want the plus money. I just took the 6 because I'm obsessed with push potential in hockey,
yeah.
and it was minus 110 or minus
Mhm.
115, I think. So I did take that initial over, and as you mentioned, the deciding factor for me was that this game is in Edmonton. I don't know what the streak is now. Is they'd won 10 of 12. It might be like, either 12 of 14 or something like that now. Like they've just been rolling and their offense has been rolling that now they roll right into Edmonton. And they just feel like a different team. And the
Mhm.
one thing, there's 2 things that you mentioned that I want to talk about, one being the goalie, but got to start with it. They touched the trophy.
Mhm.
So, as tradition, I mean, I'm sure if you're watching this, you're probably a hockey fan, but if you're not, when the Eastern Conference Finals and the Western Conference Finals champions are named, they get a trophy. There is the Clarence Campbell Trophy and there's the Prince of Wales Trophy. For the Western Conference, it's the Clarence Campbell last year, and there's a stigma. You don't touch the trophy. You certainly don't touch the Stanley Cup until you win it,
Mhm.
but you don't touch you can or you can't. last year, the Edmonton Oilers refused to touch the Clarence Campbell Trophy. They lost. This
Mhm.
year, they touched it. Connor
Mhm.
McDavid, there's this funny picture floating around
Yep.
of him, like, very unsure of should he
Mhm.
not? Afterwards, he said, well, you know what? Last year we didn't, and it didn't work out. Florida Panthers, by the way, didn't touch it last year. One didn't touch it this year. What do you make of this? Do you think it was a smart thing? I like this move because I think, again, it just, to me, it shows last year they were a little bit timid. They were a little bit scared. It was new to them. The Panthers had been there already when they lost to Vegas. So they had a little bit of hesitancy. And to me, this shows, you know what? We're just going to go win this now. Like,
Mhm.
I know I keep bringing up the Four Nations, but it's such a huge deal for those players to have won that tournament. McDavid scores the winning goal in that.
Mhm.
To me, it just shows this mentality of like, I'm not letting us lose it. We're going to go win this now.
Mhm.
How do you feel about it?
Yeah, that was first of all, I laughed so hard when he was standing there and he looked back, and it was kind of that look of, are we sure we're doing this? Like, obviously they talked about it before. I told you last time I went to the Hockey Hall of Fame last summer, and they were not in the Stanley Cup yet, but they were in the finals, and the Stanley Cup was there. And so we stood on the platform, my parents and my wife and I, and my wife was like, "Can I touch it?" Right? And the photographer was like, he's like, "Well, most people don't do that, like, because the team would lose." But I was like, my wife is so impulsive that I think she touched it and didn't want to tell me after. And then Edmonton went on to
So
lose.
now
So
we know whose
yes,
fault it was. Yes.
exactly. So I've blamed her for a year. Yeah, I mean, again, this comes back to I've never I don't know, it's I watch a lot of sports, and this team is literally acting exactly how you said. Like, there is a strong effort going on, like we don't care.
Yeah.
Tradition doesn't matter. And yeah, but that moment where he was just like, "Are we sure?" was
It's
totally.
just it's gonna be
Yep.
just it blazed in my memory of him he looked like a little kid all of a sudden. And
Yep.
it does, like, Connor McDavid is a superstitious player. He's worn the
Mhm.
same socks, if you've ever seen that, the same socks since junior that have holes in them. Like, he is
Mhm.
someone who is very specific with how he goes about his business. So I love to see that, to say, yeah, screw it. We're just gonna go win. And if we don't, it's not because of a superstition. It's not because we touched a trophy. It's
Right.
because the Florida Panthers are going to have to beat us. So that, to me, and we've talked about it before, when you watch sports, you just sometimes go, you see it all the time with the Kansas City Chiefs because they just have Patrick Mahomes and they just
Yep.
don't lose. You go, yeah, this team's just going to win. Like,
Mhm.
you seeing it right now, I think, with the OKC Thunder in the NBA,
Yep.
they're going to win, right?
Mhm.
And I think that that's the vibe that I get from the Edmonton Oilers. So I'm happy that he touched it. Like I said, the Panthers didn't, so we'll see how all that plays out. Getting into the nitty gritty of the series a little bit, obviously, this is a rematch of last year. And the big storyline was that the Florida Panthers win the Stanley Cup in game 7, a 2-1 victory. They jumped out to a 3-0 lead before, I think it was game 7, but there's the famous clip also of Connor McDavid screaming at everybody in the locker room to get it together and to take it seriously. Oilers storm back. They win game 4, 5, and 6 by a combined score of 18-5. And then the other big storyline going into this, I guess, is that it's been more than 30 years since a Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup. That was the Montreal Canadiens in 1993. What do you make of? I'm interested to get your perspective as an American, me a Canadian. What do you make of this whole, like, Canada hasn't won a Stanley Cup? I don't take much stock into it because I look at all the teams that win and go, yeah, well, half your team's Canadian anyway. So
Yep.
does this really matter? But at the same time, for my fellow Canadians, it would be nice to say, hey, you know what? I'm happy that the fan base has the cup more so than the cup just being on a Canadian team.
Yeah, it's kinda interesting 'cause, I sometimes lament that I was not born in Canada. I mean, I'm so close. And I just think that one of the things about it is the egotism of Americans. Like, that is a thing that people have held up forever. So if you're not a fan of a Canadian team, um, or if you're not a fan of an American team and you're just listening to this, like, you're listening to the stat over and over and over again. So I'm like, obviously it's Edmonton, it's my team. I want them to win, but I'd also just like to shut that up. Like,
Yeah.
because the same thing, right? Like, okay, let's go through the rosters, take off all the Canadians, and then let's see how you do, type of deal. But
Yeah.
um, Yeah, and then in this one, I'm really hoping, like, if they do a map of, like, who's cheering for who, I would assume that only one specific part of Florida is gonna cheer for Florida. They won last year. I don't think they're that likable. They don't have, like, there's not a lot of, charisma going on, and then you look at Edmonton, and it's like, pick someone.
Yeah.
And the whole 30 year, in which, it will get brought up constantly.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Edmont
it's a thing.
Edmonton is definitely the more fun team to watch, or the sexier team to watch. They've got the goals. They've got McDavid, Draisaitl leading the way with those goals. They just play a really fun style of hockey. They play an old school style of hockey in that sense. But I'm hoping for that narrative too, because I've had to hear it over and over. Oh,
Mhm,
the American wins the Cup. The America's won. Like, it's like, again, it's not like it's not like it's the 1940s where the Maple Leafs are all players from Toronto and the Boston Bruins are all players from Boston. It's completely global. So
mhm.
yes, I get it. It's technically in America, but also, when the Toronto Raptors won the 2019 NBA championship, that wasn't really it's still America's game. So
Right,
that's my own personal little vent there, but
yeah.
would be nice to see. And it would be nice to end that drought just because we've got 6 teams. So it'd be nice to change that up.
Mhm,
As I mentioned, when you start looking at the matchups, obviously the star power is on Edmonton. You've got McDavid, you've got Draisaitl leading the way with 26 and 25 points. But Sam Bennett does lead the way in the NHL playoffs with 10 goals, which is 3 ahead of Draisaitl. Do you look at it like Florida is a deeper team in the sense of, yeah, they don't have that top end talent, but their back end talent might be a little bit better? And then Edmonton is very top heavy and not so much? Or do you think it's evenly matched all the way through there?
Yeah, I mean, I last year, I would say if we'd been doing this show, I would have talked about nothing but how top heavy Edmonton was, because it just seemed like if McDavid and Draisaitl were on the ice, there was nothing happening. I've never seen two athletes look more tired than they did in Game 7. I mean, I was just like, I don't even know how they're standing up at this point. Um, I think that they're deeper this year. We've talked about him a lot. The return of Evander Kane, everybody loves to hate him. That's fine. I would if he wasn't on my team. But he has been kind of holding down that second, third area, and really facilitating some things. We're gonna miss Hyman, uh,
Oh,
mostly because of the hits he was getting this in the series. But again, Skinner's not exactly a nice guy. So anyway, you just kind of have and it's his third playoff game next. But Florida they have a very deep roster. I think that they can score from all over. That third line with Marchand has been killing it. But I don't think it's at all as top heavy as it used to be either.
and
So
I think Corey Perry is sort of offset, and he's another player I can't stand him
mhm,
because he doesn't play for Toronto. If he did, you'd love him. He
mhm,
seems to kind of have offset the Brad Marchand addition to Florida, which I think was a great addition on their side. But he reminds me of the same type of player, a grinder. He's going to get in front of the net, can kill penalties, and he's
mhm,
going to get those dirty goals. I think he's certainly not going to slide into Zach Hyman's role and the pure goal scoring and all that. But I think
mhm,
in a 7-game series, they should be able to sort of cover that up a little bit better than, if it was through the course of 80 games. I do want to talk about the goaltending in a second, but first, I just wanted to tell you about the NHL prop bet cheat sheet. You do want to be using this through the Stanley Cup finals, especially in a series with so many stars. So if you're betting on the NHL Stanley Cup finals, you want to be using the NHL prop bet cheat sheet, which shows you the very best value plays each and every game. Get daily prop bet value rankings based on projections. Find the best props for shots on goal, for points, saves, and more. Use it now at bettingpros.com/NHL props or on the Betting Pros app. So make sure when those props start going live, you are all over that because you've got McDavid, you've got Draisaitl, all kinds of things. Looking
mhm.
at the goaltending, the main question I have for you, obviously, which Stuart Skinner is going to show up. That's been the talk of every Oilers game that we've had on every single stream. Pickard got hurt, but he is back on the bench backing up Stuart Skinner. Is this Skinner series win or lose, or could we see a change if he comes out in game 1 and game 2 and gives up 6 goals?
Right this very second, I wish this was not a strictly betting podcast because I could talk. I think we should talk forever about how quickly they pulled Ottinger last night, and I thought it was the
Yeah.
dumbest thing I've ever seen. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's Skinner's. I think it's Skinner's to win or lose, but they're not afraid to make a change. Like if bad Skinner shows up in game 1, I think that Picard might get game 2. But the next question I guess I have is like, he hasn't really been bad Skinner as
Yeah,
much at all.
he hasn't been bad Skinner for a while.
So it's and like you tweeted last night after the 3 goals, you're like, it doesn't even matter if bad Skinner shows up. So yeah, I mean, so it's kind of I guess I need to give him a little bit more of a break. He's it yeah, I think they'll ride with him unless it turns into a blowout the first game, in which case they might give him a break.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that not that it's a first impression, but it's kind of a first impression where he had those just brutal games against LA. He comes out, and really since then he's been good. Like when you look at the goaltending matchup, obviously Bobrovsky's been better, sitting in second in goals against at 2.11, but Skinner's been moving up the ranks. He's at fifth. He's at 2.53, which in the playoffs is pretty good. Anytime you can be around 2.5. Bobrovsky's got the 914 save percentage, which is good for third. Perhaps that's the only fault. It's at 904, which is eighth. But, you know, a lot of that's going to be affected by those early games where he's giving up
Mhm,
5 goals and like 10 shots, which is really going to destroy your percentage there.
mhm.
So, do you think that that is going, how much of goaltending do you think is going to be a factor in this series? Less, more than the offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way Florida plays, right, and with Bobrovsky there doing what he's doing, then the goaltending is gonna make a really huge difference. You don't want to have that like I said, I just keep seeing, like, one giant slip up from either one of them. But the Oilers got to Bobrovsky last year. I mean, games 4, 5, and 6 were absurd.
Yeah.
So it's I don't think it's as big of I don't think it's as big of a deal as it would be if this was, like, Winnipeg versus Florida, where then it would be like, "Oh, the goaltending is all of it." It's just, yeah, so I'm gonna go with it's not as big as the offense, and then all of these games are gonna end 2-1.
I think it's a situation, yeah, exactly. Where I think game one's going to be very interesting for this, depending on what the score is, who wins. Like if Skinner has the bad game and he gives up six, because Florida's not really going to be expected to like if they're going to win this series, Florida's got to win 2-1,
Mhm,
3-1. Like they can't win 6-5. I don't think that's just
mhm,
not their style of game. That's not how they like to play. So if Skinner comes out and does give up, say, 6 goals, and Bobrovsky has a good game, like let's say Florida wins 5-1 in game one, it would be interesting just to see what the confidence level might be. But as of now, yeah, I think that he's going to benefit now from the fact that he's not playing the Dallas Stars, that he's not
mhm,
playing, some of these more high powered offenses that you might see. So it's going to be interesting. And I think that I agree with you with the Ottinger poll. You can't, especially in that instance where Ottinger played every single game the whole way through. You
mhm,
get to this game now with your back against the wall, and it's like, okay, well, you're done. And it's like, I
yeah,
don't know how you can just sort of veer away from that trust so quickly
mhm.
and to react that quickly, I do think was a bad move. So if you had to pin one thing as the let's all things are equal, there's one X factor in this series. Is it McDavid being the best player in the world? Is it the goaltending? Is it the special teams? What do you think could be the difference maker of this series?
I mean, my initial instinct is McDavid, right? Like, you have the best player on the planet, and he, again, seems so beyond locked in that it's like, I feel like he has another gear, and if that gear isn't enough, he'll just get another one, and he'll just keep going. So, I think he's the correct answer. For me, it's also, like, Nugent Hopkins has been playing out of his mind,
Yeah.
and Bennett actually on the Florida side, like, how much do they keep doing it? Because Barkov and Kachuk and Reinhart, like, those are their top 3, and if Bennett and Nugent Hopkins can keep doing what they're doing, then that will be a little bit more of an X factor. So, I would say McDavid, then that line, and then the return of Ekholm is the other thing.
Yeah, I have to agree. And I wanted to try to come up with a deeper answer, but Connor McDavid is truly the best player on the planet. And I don't think it's particularly close right now. And
Mhm.
then when you see the confidence level that he's playing at, it just reminds you of all these great players who have put the team on their back and said, if I have to play 35 minutes, I will. If I have to play all the special teams, I will. If I did have to look outside that, I do think it would be the goaltending. I think that's the only real weak spot Edmonton has, which hasn't been that weak, but I think if there is one, it's there. Perhaps in the coaching. I think Paul Maurice is a great coach. He's gotten his team to the Stanley Cup Finals 3 straight times. So maybe just when it comes to the X's and O's, when they get back to Florida, can he come up with a game plan when he has the second change? But I do think these teams are very really evenly matched, just in different ways.
Mhm.
But I agree. I think this series could also be over pretty quickly too. I think it just kind of depends. Game one, I think, is really going to set the tone, especially with it being in Edmonton. So as we get into it now, let's start talking about our best series bets, because both of us have some pretty juicy ones. So I will let you get things started.
Okay, so keep in mind, we won last night to go to the Stanley Cup. I am a massive Oilers fan. So when I was looking at the bets, they are so confident. Like I really haven't ever cheered for a team that was this confident at all. So I am putting sprinkling something on the series to be a sweep at plus 600. Could it go the other way and Florida sweep them? Sure. I mean, it's
Yeah.
but I think that it would be. I feel like it's more possible than I would have considered a month ago. The other thing though is that I would also kind of sprinkle on 5 games. That's at plus 270. Same rule applies where maybe if Edmonton gets out to this lead and then they punt a game, like game 3 in Florida doesn't go their way, and then they finish it up at home. So I'm fine on 4 and 5 games. I'm sure the better bet is to go pretend it's going to go 7, or think it's going to go 7, because they are evenly matched. But I woke up this morning and I'm like, nah, we're going to go sweep.
And I think, because I think 7 games is plus 200, and to me it's like, I think the plus 600 is probably like, is it likely to be a sweep? Probably not. But I think that's probably more likely than a game 7 at those odds, like at
Mhm,
6-1. I think it's definitely worth putting the money on that. So I think, again, who knows, right? Like, I thought the same
mhm,
thing about the conference finals, that, these teams match up really well, and we could see a 7-game series between Carolina and Florida, and it couldn't have been more wrong. They just
mhm.
rolled right over a team that had rolled right over everybody going into it. So I do think, I think that bet's really good too. Mine's pretty simple. I'm just going to take the Edmonton Oilers to win the Stanley Cup at minus 110 for the same reason you've said. I've pretty much put a lot of my eggs in the basket of being the Edmonton Oilers now. So if the Panthers win, I'm sorry. I just I look at that confidence, and you can say Florida's got the same confidence because they're the defending champions as well, and I can say that is true. But Edmonton's got the better player, so I took the Edmonton Oilers to win the series minus 110. And then another one that I really like is the Oilers to win game 1 and to win the series. That's plus 165. So I think game 1 being in Edmonton, just the momentum they have right now. I know Florida's hot as well, but the way Edmonton's been playing at home, with how absolutely unbelievably loud that building gets and how much of an advantage it is to play in Edmonton, give me the Oilers to win game 1 and the series at plus 165. And then to kind of hedge off that, the one that I like as well is for Sam Bennett to lead this series in goals. It's plus 1800. So he is 8. That number is correct, right? Let me just double check and make sure that that is right. I know it was a big plus money. Just double checking that. Bear with me. Plus makes for good too. Sorry, plus 1100
Okay.
for Sam Bennett to have the most goals. And as I mentioned earlier, he is leading the NHL playoffs in goals with 10 so far. And so I just look at it like, if I don't want to put all my eggs in the Edmonton basket, so if I'm going to use the Florida basket, I
Mhm.
like Sam Bennett to lead the way there with goals. I know Tkachuk's good. I know Reinhardt's good, but he's been the steadying force on offense there at plus 1100. So I
Mhm.
know you've got some juicy ones as well.
I First of all, I do love the win game 1 in the series. I think that combo is pretty great. So when you had it in there, I was a little sad because I try not to double up. So I was looking on DraftKings at the most points, and McDavid is plus 130 to have the most points. So as the rule goes, I should just make a shirt that's like that's like, if McDavid is plus money, go for it. Like, I mean, there's always a chance
I would buy
on
that shirt.
on paper. This is what he thinks. Like, he can always turn that on. So I would definitely look into that. And then it is only plus 130, just to note. But then if I'm gonna hedge, right? I was looking at the Panthers players versus the Oilers in the playoffs, and Tkachuk he's done really well against them throughout his career, like when he was in Calgary and whatnot. So the idea that he would have the most points, like on Florida's side, seems reasonable to me. And at plus 1,000, again, if when you're looking at future stuff like this, you just sprinkle on where you sprinkle on where you want to go, and then sometimes it just works out. So
Yeah, I like that one as well. And I did a quarter unit on the Bennett one for the plus 1100. And I just look at it like, the whole way through the playoffs, whether it was Aho or whoever else to lead, a lot of times because the coaching and the defense are going to be so keyed in on these players that sometimes who you think is going to lead the way in scoring, like I don't know how many points Nugent Hopkins had in the conference finals, a bunch. And Evan Bouchard's been great as well. That when you start getting into these 10-1, 11-1 odds, I think it's definitely worth just throwing a little bit there, quarter unit or something, just because you never know. And you could also, not that I ever want this to happen, but if you get an injury to a key player, all of a sudden, it might change things there as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. So I like Tkachuk to get the most points as well, because I hate him because of the way he plays. He's the guy you want on your team, but you hate to play against him. So I like that as well. So
I think the closest I've ever come to dying because of a sporting event, and I'm a Cubs fan, so I mean there have been times, but was last year. If it had mattered when he chased down that puck, when Tkachuk chased down that puck and slid, and at the last second flipped it out, if that had mattered at all, I may have died. Because I was just like, I even put it on Twitter. I'm like, I loathe him as a player. And I'm like, and that was probably one of the most impressive hockey things I've ever seen. I mean, there was no way he could get to that. So, I'm just hoping that it continues to be worthless, all of his efforts. That's what I'm hoping for this year.
And it is frustrating. You hate him so much because unfortunately he is good. So that is the problem there. So before we get out of here, I just have to ask you, as an Oilers fan, obviously you're confident. What's your excitement level heading into the Stanley Cup Finals? Are you ready? Are you prepared?
I think I'm more ready. I'm definitely more ready than I was last year. Like last year, I felt like it was kind of a surprise almost that we were there, and like we didn't really act like we'd been there before, and that whole thing. I also had a surgery where I was not allowed to lift my arms, and I tend to have a really strong lift my arms up when they score, and so that was difficult. So yes, I'm looking forward to having full use of my limbs, and being able to really just kind of sit and enjoy it. Versus like last year going, what are we doing here? So, so I mean, I'm a 10 out of 10 on excitement without question.
We'll try not to pull any shoulders out of joint by cheering too hard. My excitement level is really high too. And I think last year I tended to sort of, after the Leafs get eliminated, which is usually pretty early, my interest, it's still there, but it's not quite as high. But this year, especially being able to do this stream, which has been an absolute blast, going all the way through and really, watching and focusing on every single game, it's going to be a fun way to end the story. And I think this is going to be, the Edmonton Oilers supposed to have been good for so long with all the draft picks from Taylor Hall through Nugent Hopkins, through the one name I forget who was the bust, the Russian player, I think. They deserve it, and it's going to be fun. And I hope that they do. So thank you for joining us today here on the Friday. As a reminder, if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to subscribe over on twitch.tv/fantasypros, where we will be live every Tuesday and Friday at 3:00 p.m. Eastern, all the way through the Stanley Cup Finals. When we see you next time on Tuesday, we'll be able to break down Game 1 with all of our best picks and props. Thank you for joining us today, and let's have a great weekend.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah, I feel like I'm infinitely more excited this year around because I've seen every game the Oilers have played, every game the Panthers have played, that now it's like, the culmination.
I also think I've just infected you. But
yeah,